After 7 years in the coaching and social media marketing space, Alex founded To the Moon Digital, a digital marketing and consulting company for online coaches. As his family grew and his life and work became increasingly dependent on screens, Alex began a movement to help online workers and business owners to manage their screen time, become more present, and bring more true connection and happiness back into their lives. The offline E-Preneur. Oops, hang on. Sorry, come back. E-Preneur. I'm losing the bottom of my screen. So, Alex, I'm going to stop sharing now and it'll be over to you. Are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I've just noticed I've embarrassingly worn the same shirt I was wearing in the photo. I do have more than one t-shirt, but this happens to pull itself out every now and then because I like the cut around the shoulders.
Yeah, well, hang on a minute. How many times did you see Steve Jobs in anything other than a black t-shirt?
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Not exactly a character goal, Mr. Steve Jobs, but definitely, thick wallet, so that helps. Yeah.
Fair. Worry not about your wardrobe, sir. It's perfect. Okay, sir. Are you ready? Let's get your time going. Ready? Go.
So, an average smartphone user checks their phone every 12 minutes from when they're awake until when they're asleep. They unlock it 150 times and touch it about 2,600 times a day. These are averages. 75% of adults have admitted that they use their phone while sitting on the toilet. In fact, 2/3 of the population are now showing signs of something called nomophobia. This is a word we've actually had to make up, which is the fear of being without your phone. We had to make up a word for it, and that's 2/3 of adults. Screen time is the third most frequent source of conflict between parents and children. Teenagers who spend 5 hours or more on screens and social media in the day are 71% more likely to have suicide risk factors than those who spend 1 hour a day. And the current average for an American teenager of screen time per day is 7 to 9 hours. So I'll just let that sink in for a second, the direction we're heading. I don't want this speech, this talk, to be a downer. I don't want it to be something that is going to be foreboding and negative. However, I wanted to bring those to your attention because it's such a big part of everyday life, the screen times and the phones, that we don't realize probably how dire it's become and how ingrained we are. I want this talk to be something that can be positive and give you some ideas about how we can begin to just separate ourselves a little bit from the trap that we're falling into and become role models for the next generation coming up. And I want to tell you why this is important to me. I was caught in this trap for a very, very long time. As my intro says, I was in the coaching in the digital space for about 7 years now. My social media was my source of income. I was documenting everything, filming every workout, every trip to the beach, taking photos of every healthy meal. I was in the healthy cooking space. It was important for people to see what I was doing in the kitchen, what I was doing with my meals, how I was exercising, spending my time. I was often filming my interactions with friends, taking photos, being more present with my Instagram following than I was with the people in front of me. My excuse was always, I'm working. I am working. This is how I make my money. My likes, my followers are correlated to my income. I was working. But truthfully, I was addicted to the following, to the likes, to the dopamine rushes that we get when we are getting this social affirmation from our screens and from our phones. Now, currently, 1/3 of Australians are working from home, and many more than that, still just, even in the offices, are using their phones and their screens for work. And so the lines between work and our personal lives are becoming increasingly blurry. We are so used to having one eye on our phones when we're at home, one eye on our laptops, one on our phones, one on our screens. We are used to our attention wandering while we're eating dinner with our family, sending a text message while we're talking to someone else on the phone. All these things that we do that are taking our attention away from what's actually happening in the moment. And when I had my two daughters about a year and a half ago, I started to realize that the world they're growing up into will become an even more amplified version of what we're doing here, more virtual, more digital, more exciting. However, at some point, what is real and what is a simulation are probably going to become indistinguishable from each other. And that's when we're really in trouble. And that's where we need to bring back the dinner table. We need to bring back sitting and talking to each other rather than thinking about what's happening outside of our room while we're in the room. As an internet entrepreneur, an e-preneur, so you say, a word I've made up because I realize it isn't a word. My excuse and our excuses can always be, we are working right now. However, I want to introduce the concept of the offline e-preneur. And this is something I've been working on and really striving to achieve in my own life. I'm not perfect by any means. I am just starting to scratch the surface and notice what this is doing for myself and my family, and ironically, my work. The way that I would like this movement to progress is through 7 present principles. I call them 7 present principles because they do 2 things. 1, they spell out the word present. It's a lovely little acronym. 2, they help us to be more present. I don't have time to run you through all of them today. I can run you through 2 of them, the first one and the 7th. But I'll tell you what they all are. And then should you get the opportunity to speak to me further, then I can take you through them. Prime, redesign, engage, simplify, escape, nature, and timeout. That's the 7 present principles that we can use to actually completely change our lives and the lives of the people around us as we move into a more digital, more virtual, more connected world that is taking us away from being connected to the people we love. We are working on our phones and disregarding the people in the background on that very same phone. Have a chat about that. Have a think about it. So the first present principle is prime. Priming. Priming is a concept of owning your morning, of getting up and being in control of your day before anyone else is. And there's a lot of internet gurus who'll tell us all the things we need to do in the morning to be successful in work or in life or anything. Get up at 4:30 a.m., do 1,000 push-ups, read 30 pages of a book, do a gratitude journal, do a meditation, cacao ceremony, crystals, whatever it is for you, you know, head to the beach, cold water plunges. I fell in that trap. Just add more and more and more and my life will be better. However, these days I don't really have time for that, nor do I want to make time for that. It didn't work. When I did, the more I did, the less money and the less success I had, right? So priming for me isn't about what other people tell you to do. It's about simply taking control of your morning before you check the phone, before you check the emails, before someone else's problems become your problem that day, right? So for me, 10 minutes of breathing, 10 minutes of stretching, and try and get a coffee in before my twin baby daughters wake up. Right? Doesn't always happen like that. But the thing that always sticks is my phone comes last. My family and myself come first. This talk is not a preach. This talk is hopefully just an inspiration of what can be done. Doesn't sound huge, but it can be huge. The second thing, which is the 7th present principle, is timeout. This is the one that people will struggle with. This is about finding 10 to 12 hours a day to be without your phone, to turn it on to airplane mode. Now, that sounds quite easy. We fall asleep for 8 hours in theory, but the 2 hours on either side of sleep, these are the ones when we're on the phone the most. Outside of work, this is when we're on social media, when we're scrolling. You check out your Instagram or your Facebook engagement rates, 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., they go like that. And then in between the day, they dip. It's incredible. TikTok is a genius app, but it's a hole. I have clients off TikTok, but it's a hole. And we want to work towards being a creator, not a consumer. But that's for another talk. Timeout is about this. Finding 10 to 12 hours a day to put that phone on airplane mode. That means you cannot communicate with that phone with the outside world. You are forced to hang out with yourself and the people you're with. Imagine that. What a punishment. But I'll tell you, it is extraordinarily difficult. There are times at 8 p.m. when I shut my phone off, where I have posted something at 7:30 and I cannot wait to see how it's gone. I make my money. My Stripe account shows me how much money I made the day before. Sometimes I know a client, I've got invoices out and I want to wake up and get a good feeling in the morning. You know, how's that new video going? How's the bank account looking? How's it all, you know, what's moving forwards in my life that I can find out from this little screen here. But what I should be focusing on, what's really moving forwards, is the family growing around me. And if I spend the first 2 hours of my day responding to emails, responding to fires I need to put out, it puts me on a different path for the day than if I spend those first 2 hours tickling my daughters and watching Peppa Pig. Timeout is very, very difficult, but timeout is very, very necessary. And I challenge every one of you on here to have a crack tonight. Maybe 9 p.m., turn the phone off for 10 hours. I can't fully help you to do this all on this call, obviously. I've put the opportunity to actually book what I call an offline escape call into my links here that'll be in the chat. And that's about figuring out for you and taking accountability, what can I do in my life? Because I'll leave you with this thought. Every piece of technology will alienate you from some part of your life. That is his job. Your job is to notice the difference and choose. Thank you.
Perfect. Can you hear it? It's going off right now. I'm super impressed, sir. Well done. Well done.
I'm a pro, Wendy.
You certainly are. And that was fantastic. I